The music, the costumes, the hair. There's only one ABBA. And after decades of going their own way,
Benny Andersson has been a music legend for decades. As one of the masterminds behind ABBA, he gave the world songs that still make us sing and dance today. But behind the glitter and chart-topping hits, life wasn't always easy. ABBA's breakup hit hard, and Benny faced personal and family struggles that few fans knew about. He kept most of it private, choosing to let the music speak for him. But now, at 78, Benny has finally opened up about the truth, about her, about his past, and about what's really going on with ABBA today. Join us as we take a closer look at Benny's journey from the start and see what he has finally confessed. Early life and first steps in music. Benny Andersson was born on the 16th of December 1946 in the Vasastan district of Stockholm. His father, Gösta Andersson, was a civil engineer and his mother was Layla. He had a younger sister, Eva-Lise, who was born in 1948. Music was in his blood from the start. Both his father and grandfather, Ephraim, played the accordion. When Benny was 6 years old, they bought him his own accordion and introduced him to Swedish folk music, traditional music, and a style called Schlager. He quickly developed a love for all kinds of music. The first records he owned were Du Bis music by Katarina Valente and Elvis Presley's Jailhouse Rock. He especially loved the song Treat Me Nice on the flip side because it had a piano. This mix of different music styles would influence him for the rest of his life. At the age of 10, Benny got his own piano and taught himself to play. He was inspired by musicians like Brian Jones. School didn't hold his interest for long, so he left at 15 and started performing at youth clubs. During this time, he met his first girlfriend, Christina Gronvall. They had 2 children together, Peter, born in 1963, and Helene, born in 1965. In early 1964, Benny and Christina joined a group called Elverkets Spelmanslag, which means the Electricity Board Folk Music Group. The name was a playful joke about their electric instruments. They played mostly instrumental songs like Baby Elephant Walk, and this was when Benny began writing his first songs, the Hepstars and Rising Fame. In October 1964, Benny's career took a big step forward when he joined the pop band the Hepstars as their keyboardist. Just a few months later, in March 1965, the band had their breakthrough with the hit song Cadillac. The Hepstars quickly became one of the most famous Swedish pop bands of the 1960s. Benny became not just their keyboard player, but also the main musical force behind the group, as well as a teen idol. At first, the band played mostly cover versions of international hits, but Benny soon began writing songs for them. He gave the band several big hits, including No Response, Sunny Girl, Wedding, Consolation, It's Nice to Be Back, and She Will Love You. These songs helped shape their identity and proved Benny's talent for creating memorable music. Benny met Björn Ulvaeus in June 1966, and the two quickly began writing songs together. Their first song was Isn't It Easy to Say, which was later recorded by the Hepstars. Benny also worked with Lasse Berghagen, and together they wrote several songs. One of their entries, Hedge Clown, came second in the 1969 Melodifestivalen, Sweden's Eurovision Song Contest finals. That same event changed Benny's life in another way. He met singer Annie Frid Lyngstad, and they soon became a couple. Around the same time, Björn met singer Agnetha Falskog. These personal relationships naturally led to the close collaboration between the four of them in the years that followed. Benny and Björn scored their first songwriting hits in 1969 with Ljuva Sextetal for Britta Borg and Spellman for the Hepstars. As the two couples began helping each other in recording sessions, the powerful blend of Agnetha and Annie Frid's voices convinced Benny and Björn to model their group after successful mixed vocal acts of the time. Benny's connection with Annie Frid also grew through music. He produced her 1969 single Peter Pan, and later her debut album Frida in 1971. She kept busy with reviews and cabaret shows in Stockholm, while Agnetha starred in the Swedish version of Jesus Christ Superstar in 1972. By the early 1970s, all four were supporting each other's music careers, laying the foundation for something bigger. The beginning of ABBA. The first time the four performed together was in April 1970 during a trip to Cyprus. They sang for fun on the beach, but it turned into an impromptu concert for United Nations soldiers stationed there. Around that time, Benny and Bjorn were recording their first joint album, Lycka, with Agnetha and Annie Frid providing backing vocals on several tracks. Later that year, they launched a stage act called Festfolket, which means party people, but can also mean engaged couples. They debuted on the 1st of November 1970 in Gothenburg. The show received mostly negative reviews, except for their performance of Hedge Gamle Man, Hello Old Man, which became their first hit together. Credited to Bjorn and Benny, the song reached number 5 on the sales charts and stayed at number 1 on Svensktoppen for 15 weeks. By 1971, the four were working together more often, adding vocals to each other's songs and touring. Benny and Bjorn released more singles like Det kan ingen doktor hjälpa, No Doctor Can Help With That, and Tank om jorden vore ung, Imagine If Earth Was Young, with Agnetha and Annie Frid's voices playing a bigger role. In the summer of 1971, Agnetha and Bjorn, now married, began performing regularly with Benny at Swedish folk parks. Stig Andersson, the head of Polar Music, believed strongly that Benny and Bjorn could achieve worldwide success. He encouraged them to keep writing, and after some near misses, they entered the 1972 Melodifestivalen with Sagdet med en Sang, Say It With a Song, which came third and became a hit in Sweden. Then an unexpected success came from Japan, where their song, She's My Kind of Girl, made it into the top 10 in 1972. The real spark came in June 1972 when they released People Need Love with Agnetha, and Annie Frid featured more prominently. It was credited to Bjorn and Benny, Agnetha and Annie Frid, and while it only reached number 17 in Sweden, it was enough to prove they had something special. It even charted in the United States, marking the first small step toward what would soon become ABBA's worldwide success. Ring Ring and the birth of the name ABBA. In 1973, the group, still going by the long name Bjorn and Benny, Agnetha and Annie Frid, entered Melodifestivalen again with their song Ring Ring. Producer Michael B. Tretow gave the track a special wall of sound feel that would later become ABBA's signature. The song was also given English lyrics by Neil Sedaka and Phil Cody. Many thought it would win, but it only came third in the contest. Even though it didn't make it to Eurovision, the song and album Ring Ring became hits in several European countries and in South Africa. That same year, Agnetha had her daughter Linda and was briefly replaced by Inger Brunden for a trip to West Germany. Around this time, manager Stig Andersson decided the group needed a shorter name. He began calling them ABBA, a playful nod to a Swedish fish canning company of the same name. Permission was granted, as long as the band didn't bring shame to the brand. ABBA was simply the first letters of each member's first name, and by late 1973 it appeared on studio paperwork. A few years later, their famous logo with the backwards B was created during a photo shoot when Benny accidentally held his letter the wrong way, inspiring the final design. By 1976, the mirrored B became a permanent part of ABBA's image. Waterloo and the breakthrough years. In 1974, ABBA were invited to compete again in Melodifestivalen. They chose the upbeat Waterloo, influenced by the glam rock scene in the UK. This time, they were more experienced and better prepared. On the 9th of February 1974, they won the Swedish selection, and on the 6th of April, they took the Eurovision Song Contest crown, performing in English. The win opened doors across Europe. Waterloo hit number 1 in 9 countries and broke into the US top 10, reaching number 6. Their next single, Honey Honey, had moderate success, but in the UK, their label chose to re-release Ring Ring instead. Some began wondering if they were just a one-hit wonder. In late 1974, they toured parts of Europe, but not all shows sold out, forcing some cancellations. Things changed in early 1975 when they toured Scandinavia and played to packed venues. They continued releasing singles including SOS and Mamma Mia, which became massive hits in Europe and Australia. In Australia, their songs dominated the charts thanks to TV's Countdown. Mamma Mia stayed at number 1 for 10 weeks. By early 1976, ABBA had become a household name in many countries, although breaking into the US album market was still difficult. In March 1976, ABBA released Greatest Hits, their first UK #1 album, which included the new song Fernando. It became one of their biggest hits ever, topping charts in at least 13 countries and selling over 10 million copies worldwide. Later that year, they released Arrival, which took their success to a new level. The album included Money, 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 Knowing Me, Knowing You, and their most famous hit, Dancing Queen, which topped charts globally, including in the United States. In January 1977, they launched their first major tour, starting in Norway and traveling through Europe before heading to Australia. There, they played for huge crowds, despite challenges like heavy rain and even a bomb scare in Perth. The Australian tour was so intense it was later captured in ABBA, the movie. By the end of 1977, they released ABBA, the album alongside the movie. Then, in April 1979, ABBA released Voyage, recorded partly in Miami's famous Criteria Studios. It included hits like Chiquitita, I Have a Dream, and Does Your Mother Know? While the singles didn't all reach #1 in the UK, they were chart toppers in Belgium and popular in many other countries. Later that year, they released Greatest Hits Volume 2, which featured Gimme, 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 A Man After Midnight, another international hit. In September 1979, they began ABBA, the tour in North America, playing to sold-out arenas. The tour continued in Europe, including 6 nights at London's Wembley Arena. In 1980, they traveled to Japan for 11 sold-out concerts, their last major tour. That July, they released The Winner Takes It All, which many thought reflected Bjorn and Agnetha's divorce, though both denied it was personal. In November, they released Super Trooper, which broke UK records with over 1 million pre-orders. Its title track was their final UK #1. Around this time, ABBA also recorded Gracias por la Música, a Spanish-language album that became hugely popular in Latin America and opened up a new audience for the group. Their music had now reached every corner of the globe, but their story still had more to unfold. The Visitors and the Beginning of the End. In January 1981, Bjorn Ulvaeus married Lena Kalerjo, and ABBA's manager Stig Andersson turned 50. For his birthday, the group recorded a special song called Hovas Vitna as a tribute. Only 200 red vinyl copies were made and given to guests, making it one of ABBA's rarest records. Just a month later, Benny Andersson and Annie Frid-Lyngstad announced they were divorcing. It was revealed their marriage had been difficult for years, and Benny had already met Mona Norklit, whom he married in November that same year. Despite personal struggles, Andersson and Ulvaeus began songwriting in early 1981, and by March the group was recording again. In April, they filmed Dick Cavett Meets ABBA, a TV special. Their new album, The Visitors, came out later in 1981. It was a more mature record dealing with themes like failed relationships, political oppression, aging, and loss of innocence. The title track even hinted at secret meetings against totalitarian governments. One of Us was the only major single from the album and became ABBA's last #1 in Germany and their final top 3 hit in the UK. The album topped charts in many European countries, but didn't match earlier commercial success in places like France, Australia, and Japan. Another track, When All Is Said and Done, was released in North America and became ABBA's final top 40 hit in the US. It also touched on separation, but in a more hopeful tone. With Benny and Frida's divorce now public, rumors grew about tensions within the group, recording struggles and final singles. In spring 1982, the group began new songwriting sessions. There were talks about a new album and even a small tour, but by May and June, the process was proving difficult. They only managed to record 3 songs, You Owe Me One, I Am the City, and Just Like That. Benny and Bjorn weren't happy with the results, so the recordings were shelved and the group took a summer break. In August, plans changed. Instead of a new album, they decided to release a compilation called The Singles, The First 10 Years for Christmas, which would include all their previous hits plus some new songs. In October and December, they released The Day Before You Came with Cassandra as the B-side and Under Attack with You Owe Me One as the B-side. The Day Before You Came became a top 5 hit in several European countries, but in the UK, neither it nor Under Attack made the top 20. The compilation album, however, went to #1 in the UK and Belgium and performed well in countries like Germany and the Netherlands. Under Attack ended up being ABBA's final single before they disbanded. I Am the City was eventually released in 1993, while Just Like That was never released in full, despite fan requests. Parts of it were reworked for other projects like the musical Chess. Benny and Bjorn have continued to refuse releasing the complete ABBA version, even though it has appeared on bootlegs over the years. The last appearances. To promote the singles, the first 10 years, ABBA traveled to London in November 1982, appearing on shows like Saturday Superstore and The Late Late Breakfast Show. The following week, they went to West Germany to perform on Show Express. On the 19th of November 1982, they made their final TV appearance in Sweden on the show Neues Maskinnen. Then, on the 11th of December 1982, they performed together for the very last time. This was broadcast to the UK on The Late Late Breakfast Show with Noel Edmonds through a live link from a TV studio in Stockholm. It marked the end of an era, closing the chapter on one of the most successful pop groups the world had ever seen. The two love stories that defined ABBA. You see, ABBA was more than just a band with catchy songs and glittering costumes. They were two real-life couples, Agnetha Falskog with Bjorn Ulvaeus and Benny Andersson with Annie Frida Lyngstad. Their romance stories were part of ABBA's charm in the early 1970s. Fans loved the idea that the same people singing love songs on stage went home together at night. Agnetha met Bjorn in 1968, when he was with the Hootenanny Singers. They married in July 1971, with Benny playing the organ at their wedding. They had their daughter Linda in 1973 and son Peter in 1977. But fame wasn't always kind. Touring and constant pressure put a strain on their marriage. In 1979, at the height of ABBA's success, they split. The breakup was painful for Agnetha, who later said she needed therapy. Reports claim Bjorn had a new girlfriend, Lena Kalerjo, within a week. Around this time, Bjorn wrote The Winner Takes It All, which Agnetha sang with lines like, "Tell me, does she kiss like I used to kiss you?" She admitted it was emotional, but said, "It was fantastic to do that song because I could put in such feeling." While they told the media it was a happy divorce, Agnetha later said, "Obviously, we all know there are no such things as happy divorces, especially when there are children involved." Benny and Frida's story began in 1969, and they were living together by 1971. They didn't marry until October 1978, when ABBA was at its peak. But just 2 years later, in 1980, they separated. Benny told reporters they were still friends, but the real reason became clear. He had met another woman, TV producer Mona Norklit, whom he married in 1981. Frida said they decided to be completely honest about their problems. She explained, "We simply grew out of each other. Breaking up became a necessity." Like Agnetha and Bjorn, they tried to continue in ABBA after their split, but the chemistry had changed. By 1982, both marriages were over, and so was ABBA's golden run. Life after the breakups. When ABBA ended, Bjorn and Benny stayed busy and hugely successful. They wrote the hit musical Chess, worked on Mamma Mia for stage and film, and produced music for other artists. Their fame and fortunes kept growing, with each worth hundreds of millions. Frida and Agnetha's lives took a different path, away from the spotlight and filled with personal struggles. Agnetha battled stage fright, a fear of flying, and the pain of being away from her children during tours. Her shyness and weaker English compared to the others made her feel less confident in public. After her split from Bjorn, she had several relationships, including with a psychiatrist who had once tried to save her marriage, and a detective who was protecting her children from kidnap threats. She remarried in 1990 to surgeon Thomas Sonnenfeld, keeping it secret until they divorced 3 years later. Tragedy struck when her mother took her own life, followed by her father's death a year later. Agnetha became more withdrawn, avoiding public life and even music. In one of the strangest turns in her life, she began a relationship with Gert van der Graaf, a Dutch fan who had stalked her for years. She later admitted, "I felt I could not resist anymore. I wanted to know him." The relationship ended badly, with Gert returning to stalk her again after their split, leading her to seek court protection. Agnetha eventually moved deep into the Swedish countryside, living in seclusion much like Swedish legend Greta Garbo, even saying at one point, "I want to be alone." For years, she didn't sing or even listen to music, until surprising fans in 2004 with a new album, My Coloring Book. But just as quickly, she stepped back from the public eye again. Frida's journey through loss and change. Frida's story carried its own shadows. She was the child of a wartime romance between her Norwegian mother and a German soldier during World War II. Her mother, Cindy, was just 16 when she met Alfred, a married Wehrmacht sergeant. Food was scarce, and he brought her a sack of potatoes, a gift that led to a brief relationship. Frida was born in 1945, but her father was sent back to Germany before meeting her. Facing public shame in Norway, Cindy fled to Sweden with baby Frida and her mother Agni. Tragically, Cindy died of kidney failure at 21, leaving Frida to be raised by her grandmother. She grew up believing her father had drowned, until a reunion was arranged in 1977 after his niece recognized her from an interview. The meeting was short-lived, with Frida saying, "It's difficult to get a father when you're 32 years old." By the time she met Benny in 1969, Frida had already been married and divorced, with 2 children from her first marriage. She and Benny married in 1978, but after their split in 1981, she was deeply hurt to see him marry someone else so quickly. After ABBA ended, she moved to London, then settled in Switzerland. In 1992, she married into German royalty, becoming Her Serene Highness Princess Annie Fried of Reuss. But tragedy followed her. Her 30-year-old daughter was killed in a car accident in New York in 1998, and the next year, her husband, Prince Heinrich, died of cancer. Frida withdrew from public life, saying her faith helped her through the pain. In more recent years, she has found happiness again in Zermatt, Switzerland, with Viscount Hambledon, heir to the W.H. Smith fortune. The long road to reunion. After ABBA's split, the idea of a reunion became music's most asked question. Offers poured in, including a reported $1 billion in the early 2000s for a concert series, which they turned down. For decades, they were only seen together at rare events like the Mamma Mia, musical and movie premieres. But in 2018, something changed. All 4 began talking about working together again. At first, they planned just 2 new songs, but this grew into a full album, Voyage, released in 2021. Bjorn recalled the first day back in the studio saying, "I looked around and I looked into Agnetha's eyes and Frida's eyes, and there was the same kind of feeling, the warmth and the friendship and the bonds." They also announced a high-tech concert experience with digital avatars performing in London, giving fans a new way to see the group. ABBA Voyage, a modern stage for timeless music. ABBA Voyage first opened in 2022, and it's not your typical concert. Instead of the band performing live, fans watched digital avatars of the 4 members as they looked in their 1970s glory days. The holographic show plays inside a custom-built arena in Stratford's Queen Elizabeth Park in London, the site of the 2012 Olympics. The setlist is packed with crowd favorites like Dancing Queen, Waterloo, and Mamma Mia, and the high-tech production makes it feel as though ABBA are right there in the room. The project has been a massive hit, both with audiences and financially. According to a new report, ABBA Voyage has pumped £322 million into the British economy, with more than 1 million tickets sold at prices up to £181.50. And it's not just the numbers. The show has kept ABBA's music alive for new generations while giving longtime fans a nostalgic thrill. For the 3rd anniversary starting May 27th, the production introduced a little added something to the setlist, giving returning visitors a fresh reason to come back. While Agnetha Faltskog and Bjorn Ulvaeus couldn't be there for the anniversary, Benny and Frida's appearance gave the celebration an emotional touch. It showed that even after decades, breakups, and life changes, ABBA's story is still being written, not just through their music, but in moments like these, where the past and present stand together on the same stage. Speaking of which, on May 27, 2025, something special happened at ABBA's Voyage show in London. Benny's heartfelt words about Frida. Benny Andersson, now 78, and his former wife and bandmate, Frida Lingstad, 79, made an unannounced appearance to mark the concert's 3rd anniversary. The crowd went wild when they saw the 2 standing together in the balcony, a rare sight since their marriage ended over 4 decades ago. Benny, in a printed blazer, and Frida, dressed in a chic cream outfit, stood side by side as the cheers filled the venue. Taking the microphone first, Frida smiled warmly and told the audience, "I love you very much. Thank you for all your support over the years. It's hard to imagine it's nearly 50 years ago." She then added with a laugh, "I'm turning 80 this year," which sparked even louder applause. Her words felt like a bridge across the years, acknowledging the long journey from ABBA's beginnings to this moment. Benny then stepped up, and instead of a serious comment, he lightened the mood with a playful, "Two men walk into a bar," making Frida burst into laughter. For fans, it was more than just a joke. It was a reminder of their easy connection and history together. They had first met in 1969, moved in together soon after, and married in 1978 during the height of ABBA's fame. But staying together while being in one of the world's biggest bands proved difficult. By 1980, their marriage had ended, and the divorce was finalized the next year. At the time, Benny admitted, "Frida and I are still friends. We decided to stay together for the sake of the music." Frida explained honestly, "We simply grew out of each other. After long and hard talks, we decided to go our separate ways. There was a lot of tears and a lot of discussions, but there was no way back. Breaking up became a necessity." Their appearance at Voyage, and Benny's warm, lighthearted moment, was the kind of public gesture that felt like a quiet revelation about how much respect and affection still remains between them. While ABBA Voyage continues its sellout run in London, Benny Andersson and Bjorn Ulvaeus are making waves on Broadway. Later in 2025, 2 of their biggest stage hits, Mamma Mia and Chess, will run at the same time. Mamma Mia, premiered in London in 1999, arrived on Broadway in 2001, and has since been seen by over 70 million people in 50 productions in 16 languages. It became Broadway's 9th longest-running show, playing 14 years with 5,773 performances and grossing more than $7 billion. Now it returns to the Winter Garden Theater for a limited run from August 2, 2025 to February 1, 2026. Chess, co-created in the 1980s, will join it on the Broadway stage. Having both shows play simultaneously highlights the enduring strength of Benny and Bjorn's partnership, a creative bond that has thrived through ABBA's breakup and personal challenges, continuing to connect their music to generations of fans worldwide. Do you think ABBA's marriages and divorces were the main reason the band broke up, or would it have happened anyway? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time!